of a lot of things, ranging from sports to industry. But what many Pittsburghers don't realize, and what they should know, is that it's known for steps. Yes, steps. The staircases of Pittsburgh include 712 sets of steps, 44,645 steps, and 24,000 vertical feet of steps. Isn't that amazing? In the early 19th century, new industry flourished in the somewhat underdeveloped city of Pittsburgh. These industries consisted of many mills and factories that took place on the flat land near the river shore. This left the incoming immigrant workers to make housing along the steep hills that surround the three rivers. These new homes needed access, and so the construction of large staircases began, so workers could navigate their way home or to work. These staircases are gigantic. Look at the construction. Look at the durability. Engineers spent plenty of time working on these. Without steps, a lot of people wouldn't be able to get to their homes. Notice how this step, without it, this person living in this house, and the house in front of me, and many other houses along these stairs, wouldn't be able to get to their homes. The houses are linked by the stairs. It's really interesting how the stairs accommodate so many people and make so many people's lives possible to live on these very steep hills. Only 40%. Here I am in the south side, where, as you can tell, the stairs of Pittsburgh are used and greatly appreciated. I've been watching this guy go up these stairs, and I've seen him take a couple breaks as he goes up. So as you can tell, they're pretty difficult. The stairs of Pittsburgh are different from other stairs in other cities, largely in part because of the traversing and side-winding stairs that we have. Because of the very steep hills, some of the stairs have to turn and twist to accommodate the land that they go up. 40% of the city of Pittsburgh's land is unsuitable for building, due largely in part to the steep hills. In the early days of transportation, it was too difficult to make roads that were able to traverse these steep hills, so staircases were built instead. In an early plan of development, the city had set out to build a number of roads that looked extremely possible and doable on paper, but when actually compared to the topography of Pittsburgh, the plan seemed impractical. Along with the plans, but instead of trying to place they went along with the plans, but instead of trying to place streets where roads couldn't be built, they placed staircases, which ended up having street names. These staircases were named paper streets because of how they were identified as streets on the maps, but instead are actually staircases. Needless to say, these paper streets confused many motorists, but also connected many communities, and made it easier to get to work to the local grocery store. Today, there remain 334 legal paper streets. In the late 1800s, there weren't any cars, and trains were too long to carry workers to the local jobs. So staircases were built instead, and workers greatly appreciated it. Pay close attention to how the stairs of these are made out of a newer brick, and these stairs are made out of an older brick. Notice how this house seems to be made out of newer material, and these houses made out of older brick compared to vinyl wood. This is because many of the city is rapidly changing. The stairs that you're looking at right now, hard to see, though these are the stairs that connect the south side across the river to upper the Duquesne. A lot of students commute this way, and these stairs prove very vital to their trip to Duquesne. Right here is a great example of these legal paper streets that I was talking about earlier. This is Basin Street, but, well, it's not quite a street. It's actually a staircase. Historic sites in Pittsburgh, like Penn Station in front of me, but one of the more unappreciated ones are the stairs. The next site we're going to go to is what we would call a historic landmark, and it's nice to know that Pittsburgh at least appreciates it a tad. Troy Hill is an old German neighborhood atop one of the steepest hills in Pittsburgh, actually an elongated plateau that parallels the Allegheny River near Washington's Landing. Today there is only one road, Rialto Street, complete with sidewalk steps, that leads directly from the banks of the Allegheny River to the Troy Hill neighborhood. Its 24-degree slope ranks it as the 5th steepest street in the city. Rialto Street was known in an earlier time as Pig Alley for the livestock driven over Troy Hill. Now it's simply a direct route over Troy Hill to the Spring Garden neighborhood. Look at this beautiful staircase. Now look around it. It's a shame that Pittsburgh treats its stairs and its environment like this. It's sad to see people litter and treat our beautiful nature, which has done nothing against us, so badly. It's too bad. In the early 1900s, there was only one type of steps, and those were wooden steps. The early wooden steps of Pittsburgh eventually began to become unfavorable with the public. Maintenance for the wooden steps began to become very costly, with children ripping the steps apart for firewood and others falling through rotten boards and suing the city. The city decided that it was time to transform the wooden steps into more modern concrete steps. The year 1945 began the era of concrete steps in Pittsburgh. With a huge budget set aside for rebuilding of the steps, it was evident that Pittsburgh realized how necessary these steps are to the public. Pittsburgh's economy was very dependent on the steps, considering the number of workers that commuted on them daily. There was an actual line in the budget, and still is an actual line in the budget, that says stairs, fences, and walls. In 1947, the city spent more than $495,000 for repairing 64 staircase jobs. The amount set aside for stairs in the 2002 Pittsburgh budget was $950,000. This is a lot of money, considering we're only talking about staircases here. But as you can see, it's hard for the city, the Department of Public Works, to get around to all the steps. Notice this hole, and look up. These railings, some of them rusted, can be a hazard to people walking down the stairs. I think there needs to be an awareness of these steps and how that people still appreciate them. Over here, you'll notice that there's some railings missing, which if an elderly person was walking down these stairs during the winter time and they weren't salted, she might slip and fall and hurt her head. It would be a complete shame if that happened, because it would be totally unnecessary if we could just spend a little bit more money. Maybe the reason they don't spend the money is because people don't realize how important these steps are to people, or just don't realize the beauty of them. So I think that people need to start realizing that, and maybe some action will be made in the council to provide some money for these steps and make them well maintained. Right beside the Heinz plant and Penn Brewery, this staircase that I'm on right now provided a lot of workers direct access to the Heinz plant. This staircase, it's difficult to tell by the camera, but if you look closely, you can see that the surrounding landscape has eroded away on this steep hill. All that really remains on this hill that's able to stand up straight are the houses at the very top and the staircase that I'm on right now. This staircase has 233 steps. Counted it myself. There are 5 sets of steps with more than 300 steps, or treads. Ray Avenue, which is in Brookline, has 378. Jacob Street, which is also in Brookline, has 364. 57th Street, which is in Lawrenceville, has 345 steps. And Rising Main Way in Farmview has 331. And lastly, and definitely not smallest, is Yardway, which is in the south side, and has 317 steps. A lot of people find that the best scenic sites are the ones that everybody knows about, especially the one over on Mount Washington. But a lot of the steps in Pittsburgh offer great scenic sights. It'd be nice if more people noticed that and took advantage of the city steps that are all there for them for free.